This man is filled with wisdom, knowledge, empowerment, and joy. So let's give a warm welcome to the lovely Gopi Kallayil.
Good afternoon. I have a question for all of you. How many organs are there in your body right now? That should be easy, right? This is a conference about mind, body, spirit. You are the experts. How many organs? Give me some guess. 10. 32. One more? 1. So it's interesting that we are not even sure, even though this is an instrument we use every single day. So I asked some doctor friends of mine, and they weren't sure either. They were like, it all depends on how you count organs. So I asked my most trusted source, Miss Google, and Miss Google told me there are 78 organs in the human body by popular concept. So today I want to introduce you actually to the 79th organ that we all have in our body. Not created by nature, not created by God, but by human beings. This device here. Now, does that shock you? Since many of you are already holding on to your 79th organ and busy with it, let me introduce you to why this technology is like a human organ. First of all, it's got a skin. You touch it, it responds. It's got eyes. It can recognize people and objects around it. It's got ears. You speak to it, it understands you. It's got a mouth and a voice because it can talk back to you. And clearly it has a brain because we call it a smartphone, and I know my smartphone is a lot smarter than I am. And most importantly, it must have a mind, body, and spirit and consciousness. Otherwise, why else would all of you walk around with this so close to your heart, sleep with it next to your bedside? And most importantly, when I was walking around the streets of Stockholm, I find most residents here spending the time lost deeply in prayer. But all jokes apart, this has become the most pervasive technology in human history, and that has serious implications for us as a society. This January, we hit an inflection point. For the first time in history, there are an estimated 7.1 billion human beings on this planet. And now, in January, the estimate was there are 7.2 billion mobile devices. For the first time, those two things crossed. And what that means is more people have access to one of these technologies now than have access to clean drinking water or electricity. This is unprecedented in human history. And we have to sit here and ask, what does this mean? Because there is no going back. So what does this mean as we go forward for the next generation, surrounded and with so much of technology embedded in our daily lives? And sometimes it has some unintended consequences, and a lot of times it has amazing benefits that we could not have anticipated. And at this point, you're kind of thinking, where is this guy going with this? I don't trust this guy. This is Gopi, the Google guy, right? He's the drug dealer. He's part of that mafia from Google and Silicon Valley that is intent on pushing on us more weapons of mass distraction. I'm already addicted to my device, and there's so much coming at me, and I'm sure they are engaged in making more of it. So I'll tell you some of the unintended consequences that I experienced. One good story. A few years ago, I was at the Kumbh Mela festival in Allahabad, India. Have any of you here been to the Kumbh Mela festival? Yeah, a couple of people have said yes. How many people have at least heard of the Kumbh Mela or seen a documentary? So 7 or 8 people. Let me introduce you to the rest of you what the Kumbh Mela is about. It is the largest gathering of humanity. And it takes place once in 12 years. And the really big Kumbh Mela, the Maha Kumbh Mela, I went to, takes once in 144 years. And it attracts millions of people. In fact, in India, when we say millions of people, it's not a figure of speech. It actually means millions of people gathered. In fact, this particular Kumbh Mela, that I went to, the Mahakumbh Mela that took place in Allahabad recently, there were an estimated 100 million people who came to the festival. That is 10 times the population of Sweden. And on the day I arrived, there were 30 million people, which is about 3 times the population of Sweden, gathered in one place on the banks of the convergence of 3 rivers, the Ganga, the Yamuna, and the Saraswati. So early one morning at the festival, I was walking along the river, and this festival actually attracts lots of Hindu holy men, yogis, sadhus. These are career mystics, career spiritualists who have committed themselves to spend their entire life in contemplative practices, meditation and yoga and prayer, etc. And I saw one of these Hindu holy men early in the morning as the sun was coming up on the banks of the river. And as I watched him, he was not engaged in prayer, in repeating Sanskrit mantras. He was not in a yoga pose. He was not deep in meditation. Instead, he was jabbering away on his cell phone. And I was thinking, what are we doing with the technologies we're building here, driving this career spiritualist to distraction? But jokes apart from unintended consequences like this, there are also a huge amount of benefit, and I'm particularly acutely aware, given my own personal circumstance and situation, of the kind of sweeping benefits that these are bringing into our world. So if you don't mind, I'll start off with actually a personal story that illustrates it. And for that story, I want to go back to a small rice farming village in southern India in Kerala called Chittalangeri. And I know there are a lot of Swedish travelers who go to that part of the world. How many of you visited Kerala? Okay, wow, a lot more than Kumbh Mela. At least 40 of you raised your hand. That's amazing because it's a beautiful place full of greenery. This is where my parents live. And in this village, Chittalangeri, which occupies a very soft spot in my heart because this is our home village, this is where my grandparents lived as poor rice farmers. And this is where my parents also grew up as the children of poor rice farmers. And when they grew up, they had no electricity, no running water, and no formal education of any significant measure. The only education they received was 10 years of an Indian rural village school, which is modest at best. Those of you who travel to that part of the world know about this. But they had aspirations for their kids, just like parents anywhere else in the world have. And thanks to those aspirations, their 4 kids, me and my 3 siblings, between us went on to earn 10 college degrees, even though my parents had 0, including 2 from US Ivy League business schools, even though my parents had never set foot in America. So we are often asked, what caused that kind of social mobility in one generation? And it was very simply access to information. But it was very slow access. I still remember when I was studying in my undergrad engineering school, I took an 8-hour train trip to the nearest big city of Chennai, or Madras as it used to be called, so that I could look at a physical copy of the US World News Guide to Graduate Schools to decide what grad schools to apply to. Now we pull these devices and we won't wait for 8 seconds. It seems too long, but 8-hour train journey to get the right information. But it's access to that information that propelled us forward in terms of education and has gotten me to this point in life right here. But now when I go back to the village, as I do every year with my parents and our siblings for a ceremony in the village temple, and I look at the school where my mother studied, it does not look very different infrastructure-wise, physically. But in that school, and tens of thousands of other schools around the world, kids who have access to computers and the kind of technologies we're building, whether it's a Google or any other company, have access to the same amount of information as somebody who goes to, say, the Swedish School of Economics or the Karolinska Institute, right? In an era where information is like oxygen, thanks to all of these technologies, thanks to the 79th organ, we're at least leveling the playing field for humanity, and huge implications and positive benefits to society. And one more example that really strikes me when I go back to the village that I'm always thinking about is, when I used to walk around the paddy fields, when I was a little boy, I used to go spend my summer with my grandparents, the entire village of 20,000 people had 3 telephones with 2-digit numbers. So you can imagine the fight for vanity numbers in that village. And back then I thought I was a child prodigy because I carried the phone book for this entire village in my head. I still do, 31, 32, 33. But now when I go back, half the village seems to have one of these devices, and they wear it in their little pockets in the mundus or the white sarongs that they wear. And looking at them, it struck me suddenly that any of these people could pull out their 79th organ, punch in 17 digits, and be instantly connected to any one of you here. So all of a sudden, 6 billion human beings, and that's the estimated number of mobile devices, or assuming each device is with every person, that technically every single human being has the potential to be talking to every single human being. Geography is not a barrier. Even language is not a barrier, because increasingly we are now working on a technology where you can speak in Hindi and out comes Mandarin on the other side. Right? Automatic real-time translation is just imminent. So this level of connectivity, the fact that human interconnectedness has huge amount of positive benefits, and technology is really touching with our lives in amazing ways. But even as we are enamored by this so much technology in this world, there's one thing we cannot forget, and that is the most important technology still available to all of us. The most important technology that we use every single day, and it's equally available whether it is one of you sitting here in the audience or whether it's a tribesman in the Masai Mara, is what? That we use every single day. Exactly. Our brain, our body, our breath, our consciousness continues to be the most sophisticated, most complex, most important technology available to every single human being. And I call this a technology because it's a useful framework to view it as a technology and contrast it with all these other technologies we're suddenly getting so impressed and carried away with. Because everything you experience in your life has to be filtered by this technology. Think about that for a minute. You just had lunch. It is being processed by this technology. You're trying to make sense of what I'm speaking and making mental translations. It is being processed by this technology. You listen to a piece of music when you go home or leave this place. It has to be received and synthesized by this technology. And the quality of our life, every single day, the quality of our life is the quality of this technology. And if you don't believe me, think of the last time you had something as simple as a flu. All of a sudden, the same food was tasteless, the same person you enjoyed talking, you didn't want to meet, and you didn't want to read a book or listen to any music, right? Because the quality of this technology had gone down, and all of a sudden, your quality of your life disintegrates. But that puts us in a certain paradox. And here is the paradox. For this technology to be in a state of peak performance, it needs its moments of quiet. It needs this moment of withdrawal and going back into itself. But in contrast, all these other technologies that we are increasingly surrounded by demand our attention all the time. By the time this session is over and you go back to home at the end of the day, your inbox is probably exploding with another 50, 100 messages. Status messages don't understand that you're out of the office or it's a Saturday. So while this technology needs its withdrawal, all of these technologies are constantly clamoring for attention with their rings, with their tweets, with their beeps. And sometimes we have to just take a step back and look at all of these technologies. And I tell people, you have to unplug from the internet, step back from it, and plug into what I call your inner net, in order to move your inner technology into a state of peak performance. But how do you do it? Because most of us don't have the luxury of living in, say, a Zen monastery where there's a ritual and a routine by which you get up early in the morning and sit for your practice or chant on the banks of a river. We have busy demands. In fact, email has already started pouring in. You wake up in the morning, you check, and your head explodes. So how do we live in this world, fully engaged, surrounded by these technologies, and still make room for plugging into our inner net? So I'm going to talk about 5 rituals by which you really optimize this technology. And this is symbolic, but I just don't mean just the brain, but also the brain, the body, the breath, our consciousness. So the first of the 5 rituals that I'm going to recommend to you, is something as simple as focus on the essential. As German philosopher Goethe said, things that are more important should not be at the mercy of things that are less important. Things that are more important should not be at the mercy of things that are less important. So how many essentials do you need? And why do you need essentials? Because if you know clearly what are the 1, 3, or 5 most important things that are central to your life, that is central to plugging your internet, you're able to say yes to those few things and say no to most of the things that keep distracting you. So several years ago, I went and stayed in a Benedictine monastery called New Camaldoli Hermitage on the Big Sur coast in California, south of San Francisco. A group of Benedictine monks run it, and they have a killer URL, www.contemplation.com. And I was wondering, for a bunch of reclusive monks, how did they nab this amazing URL? But these monks provide about 9 cottages where you stay by yourself and overlook the Pacific Ocean on the rugged coast and spend most of your time in meditation and contemplation and in silence. And at that time I was involved in co-founding a Silicon Valley startup and trying to build this company from the ground up. So it is a very stressful period from a work, business, professional perspective. And in order to get a break, I had gone and stayed in this hermitage. And while staying there, my mind was obsessing over the business plan and what we had to do for fundraising for our venture, etc. And it struck me then that I have a business plan for my company, for my startup, but I have no business plan for my life. So I decided then and there I should write, quote unquote, a business plan for my life. So at least I have a core sense of purpose. So sat down during my entire time at the stay at this retreat and wrote down what I call the organizing principles of my life or the business plan of my life. And I wanted to get it down to 1 sheet of paper. I said this should not be too complicated. I should be able to get it on 1 sheet of paper as to what are the most important things in my life. And then actually I wanted to distill down into 5 words because I said the core purpose of our life, the essentials of our life, we should be able to get it down to a few words. It should be as simple and as blindingly obvious as that. So reduced it to 5 words. And for all these years, now it's going on 17 years, I've carried those 5 words on my fingertip so that at any point in time, I can say yes to those 5 things so that I can say no to all the other things that keep calling for attention. So that's one of the first things I'm going to ask you to think about today. What are your essentials that you will focus on to take care of your life inside here? The second ritual that I want to talk to you about is to do one thing at a time. Now, this is nothing new. You've been hearing about it since your grandmother was telling you this, right? This is like saying, eat vegetables and exercise and you will get healthy. But it is amazing to the extent to which we ignore this one simple advice and the cost that comes with it. On this flight here, when I was flying from San Francisco, the airport, I saw this woman. She was in front of me in the security line, and she was pushing her carry-on baggage because she had her cell phone cradled in her ear, making conversation, while with one hand she was checking something on a notepad. And this was cradled, so she had her other hand free, and she was actually eating a sandwich as well. And she was pushing a bag like this, and she got up to the security person, and then he said, and I need to see a boarding pass. So she cradled this, put the sandwich and the iPad down, and now had reached out for a boarding pass and a driver's license. So she was doing, at this point, 5 things at the same time. Not one thing, 5 things. And I thought, how did we get here as a civilization? How are we even surviving with all of this? Because this technology is extremely good if you ask it to do one thing. And this is why, if you look at, this is what champion athletes and virtuoso musicians have figured out. You will never see a virtuoso musician playing his violin while still keeping an eye on ESPN or CNN, right? Because intense focus is what gets them to that quality of world-class professionalism. But somehow we think that we can get away with this multitasking. It is the curse of what Linda Stone calls continuous partial attention. We somehow think we'll be the first generation in history to disprove a law of nature. And the law of nature is give your brain one thing to focus on, it excels in. So I'm guilty of this myself, and I have some Google colleagues, and we all know each other's behavior. We walk into a meeting, somebody's doing a presentation. In the middle of the presentation, you're answering an email while hoping that you're still paying attention to what is being discussed, have 3 chat windows open, and are simultaneously trying to inhale lunch. And at the end of the meeting, I will I realized that I only barely understood what was being presented. I typed an embarrassing message in the wrong chat window. She did forgive me. And if you ask me, what did I eat for lunch? How did it taste? I could not tell you. So try shifting to this mode of just focusing on one thing at a time, and how it changes your energy level, how it changes your attention and your intention, and where it takes you in terms of focus, productivity. Your brain will thank you, your body will thank you. The third ritual I'm going to talk about is to dedicate at least 1 minute to connect with your internet every single day. Just 1 minute. Now, this should strike you as the most ridiculous suggestion you heard in this entire conference. You should ask Alfred for your money back. So what I'm urging you is, ask yourself, what is your own practice? There is no one set practice. What is your own practice to unplug from everything else and plug into your internet? And it might be something as simple as reading poetry, or just holding your baby and just giving your baby full attention, or it might be picking up a guitar and playing, or just going out for a walk in nature by the woods, by a lake. For me, it is yoga and meditation as daily practices. So I commit myself to 1 minute of yoga and 1 minute of meditation every single day. Now, how can that benefit anyone? What is 1 minute of yoga going to do? But I'll tell you how I got into this model. When I was a teenager, I lived in an ashram in India, and I'd been taught meditation by my spiritual teacher, by my guru. I'd also become a yoga teacher then, and it was such a beautiful period in my life when I was in the ashram, because I was practicing regularly, that when I left the ashram, I committed to myself that I want this feeling to last. So therefore, I am going to meditate every single day for 30 minutes and practice yoga, yoga meaning the postures, asanas, for 60 minutes. That commitment lasted all of 3 days. Because I was back in college and up till 2 a.m. listening to Led Zeppelin and doing all the other things my friends in my dorm were doing. And this carried on well into my adult life. And I walked around every single day with the sense of guilt, with the sense of I don't have integrity towards my own commitment. I was struggling with it. Occasionally here and there on a weekend I may have fit it in, but most days I was missing on this target, which I knew would be good for me. So one day, in desperation, I spoke to a colleague of mine at Google. His name is Chade Meng Tan. He is the founder of the Search Inside Yourself program at Google. He's written a best-selling book by the same name as well. So I walked up to Meng on the Google campus and said, Meng, I'm struggling with this whole thing. How can I practice on a regular basis? And Meng has a lot more wisdom than I have. So he paused and said, Gopi, why don't you start with one breath? Because even if you're trying to meditate for a full hour, it's 600 breaths strung together. And you have to start with one breath and get past the one breath and go to the second one in order to get the 600. This is how even the Buddha did it. And since I was a compulsive neurotic overachiever, I said, I can do better than that. I'm going to commit myself to a whole minute. So that's how I got into this practice of 1 minute of yoga and 1 minute of meditation every single day. But here is how the magic unfolded after that. Because now, there's not a single day when I can say, I don't have 120 seconds. What is the point if of the 1,440 minutes we all have every single day, I cannot spare 2 minutes for my own self? So I started practicing 1 minute of yoga, 1 minute of meditation. Now a week went by, 2 weeks went by, and when I look back, I could say with complete honesty and integrity that I have now practiced yoga and meditation every single day. Even though some days it is only for 1 minute. So what we are doing here is psychologically move it down to the lowest threshold that you can never say no to get your practice going if you're struggling with it. Psychologically bring it down to the lowest threshold where you can actually say easily yes. From exercise to yoga to meditation to whatever is your connection to internet, it works like magic. But here is what happened after that I was completely unprepared for, that I was not expecting. On many days I would sit in a hotel room when I'm traveling for just 1 minute of meditation, like I did yesterday when I arrived. And when the minute was up, I would sit there thinking, this is so sweet, this feels so wonderful. What am I getting up and rushing off to that is more important than this? So I'd easily then transcend into the second minute and the third minute. And before I knew, I was easily sitting for as long as 30 minutes without a problem because I'd overcome the hurdle. And that's how the magic unfolded and my practice started deepening and expanding. So commit yourself to 1 minute of whatever it is that you use to connect to your internet. The fourth ritual I want to talk about is once a week, make a deeper, longer appointment with yourself for connecting to your internet. Now, if you notice, I'm pretty sure everyone in this audience, your life is driven by some sort of a calendar or a schedule. And if there is an item on your calendar, a meeting with somebody that somebody has added, you're very likely to go because it's a fixed item on your calendar and someone has scheduled it. You honor that schedule, you honor that commitment. Similarly, make appointments with yourself at least once a week. So what I'm asking here is not to sort of tell yourself, okay, meditation is my practice, I'm going to do it sometime when I get a chance in the week. No, I'm asking you to commit to whatever is your practice at least once a week, say half an hour or 1 hour block, and the same time every day of the week, and a fixed time, and keep it non-negotiable. So it might be Saturday, 8 a.m., I'm going to give myself 1 hour for my practice, and that's always Saturday, 8 a.m., week after week after week. And you communicate that with your family, you communicate that with the people at work, if it is during a work day. And to yourself, you say, that one item is non-negotiable. Because our calendar is always falling apart as people hijack items and put appointments and ask you to be at different places, and obligations and commitments show up. But among all of the hours available in the week, 168 hours, pick 1 hour and say that is non-negotiable every week. And something shifts when you have that kind of commitment. It's not 2 hours. I'm not asking you about 10, just 1. So in my own case, there are about 2 or 3 that are non-negotiable fixed appointments. And I'll tell you how it has worked for me. I teach yoga at Google. The Googlers have different kind of subgroups based on interest. So I have a yoga group for the Googlers, and my group is called the Yoglers. And I teach every Monday at 5:30 p.m. on the Google campus in Mountain View in Silicon Valley. I've been at Google for 9 years, and for 9 years, I've never missed my Monday class. Because that is one non-negotiable commitment to the community. Unless I'm traveling, in which case I make sure there's somebody else subs for me, continues the class, and I will practice or lead wherever I am. So I've taught in Beijing and Sao Paulo and Tokyo, depending on my travel schedule. But that is one commitment that I say I will have integrity to. And it's amazing when you can hold on to something that is non-negotiable. So when you get home today, pick one day of the week, 1 hour or half an hour slot, that is your fixed slot, appointments for your own connection to your internet. The fifth ritual that I want to talk about is to something as simple as friend yourself. In this day of social media, we are all extremely proud of the fact that we have 1,000 people following us on Twitter, that we have 2,000 connections on LinkedIn or Google+, which is fantastic. This technology has allowed us to have these connections and exchange of ideas between strong and weak networks all over the world at the click of a button. But in the midst of all of this, each one of us has to remind ourselves that the most important relationship we'll ever have, the most important social connection we'll ever have, is the one with ourselves. The most important relationship you'll ever explore in your life is the one with yourself. And therefore, listen to the tweet from your heartbeat, listen to the status update from your body, and respond to the chat request from your brain. Because that will really help you connect. When you friend yourself, you really connect to the center of your internet. So my basic message at the end of all of this is something very simple. We live in an era where technology is moving at such an incredible speed and it's bringing huge amounts of benefits, but it also has come without a user manual in how do we cope with 500 messages coming to us? How do we cope with all of these people trying to connect with us on social media and expecting that we will respond within the same day while we still live our life? And even as we try to grapple and try to understand and put all of this in context and live empowered by so much of technology in our life, the one thing that is important for us to really realize is that we have to work towards optimizing our inner technologies, because that has not changed in 5 million years in terms of how the human body, mind works, what it responds to, and what you need to do to move into what I call a state of peak performance. And for that, again, as I said in the beginning, we need to unplug from the internet and plug repeatedly, regularly into our internet and have some sort of regular rituals to do so. I talked about 5 rituals. These are things that work for me. The same things may work, or it might be a completely new set of rituals that work for you. And I urge you to identify your own set of 3 or 5 rituals today as you go out and commit yourself and experiment with it over a period of time. And part of it is to make these rituals portable so where you can take it along wherever you go. And that's exactly what we are going to do right now. Oh, before that, I also wanted to forget that I actually took all of these ideas and many more and decided to write a book about it. And that book is called From the Internet to the Internet. And the good news for you is today is actually the worldwide release of this book. So since I happen to be speaking here, I made this my launch event and release day. So you will be the first people actually to get a copy of this book if you so choose. Even my parents haven't got one yet. And I will have a few copies outside, the paperback edition that's out there, and sign it for you. Initially, I thought maybe I should give it away free, but after I heard Lorenzo yesterday, I said that'll lower the GDP of US and Sweden, and therefore it's no longer free. So since you have a few more minutes, I said rather than talk about these things, we should actually practice. So I'm actually going to lead you into a practice. And I did something similar a few years ago, and some of the Googlers in the audience may remember this. We were at an annual business conference with Googlers in Las Vegas. There were upwards of 10,000 people. And on a spur of moment, we led the whole room through a short yoga meditation session and set a world record for the largest class in Americas and the 3rd largest in the world. And we're going to do something similar, not talk about it, but actually go into practice. How many of you have never done yoga as in the physical practice? Okay, so a few people. How many of you have never meditated? Even like a short duration? Yeah, in this crowd, very small. So since you're all seasoned practitioners, we're going to somehow make use of the space and go into, what are the slides here? I don't need it actually. We're going to actually go into a short practice right now here. We'll make do with the space we have. Just sit comfortably and just let's get connected with our bodies. Sit with your leg on the ground, hands on. And you can keep your eyes open or closed. And just take a nice long deep breath. Just ask yourself, what does my body feel right now? Where's my head at? Am I sleepy? Am I awake? Am I bored? Am I distracted? It's okay. Whatever you feel, that's exactly how you are. There's no judgment. We're not trying to change. Take a nice long deep breath. Deep inhale and exhale. Again, deep inhale and exhale. So move from here to a short physical yoga practice in the little space that we have. We'll have fun with it. And set an intention for the practice. Say, what do you want to get out of this? It might be, I want to feel my body a little more. I want to kind of stretch and open up my body, connect with my breath, or make it a meditative practice. Set an intention. We always start with an intention. So let's get the music going. And everyone, please stand up. And with whatever space. And if you have a little space to spread out, spread out. If you can get to the outer aisle, get that too. We have less people now, so we can spread. And just stand there in Tadasana, mountain pose, with your legs about hip width apart. Hands kind of open, chest expanded, with thrusting out. Head held high, looking tall, proud, strong. And just close your eyes and see how your shoulders, body feels like. Feet planted, anchored on the ground. Relax your jaw, relax your face. All we're doing is just connecting with the body, being present to our body, having sat on the chair for most of the day. And let's start with a couple of deep, relaxing breaths. Take a nice long inhale and exhale. Again, inhale energy, oxygen, prana from all around you. And exhale tiredness, carbon dioxide, stress, and negative emotions. One more time, nice long deep inhale at your own pace. And long slow exhale, relaxing something physically in your body. And from here, bring your hands on your hips, place your hands on the hips, thumbs touching at the base of the spine. We'll do a modified cobra pose, Bhujangasana. So we'll do Uttara Bhujangasana, standing cobra. Just kind of lean back gently, dropping your head back, pushing your hips out, just opening up your chest, allowing your vertebra to expand. And continue to breathe. Take a nice long inhale. And exhale, feeling the expansiveness in your chest and spine. One more deep inhale. And exhale, come back to center. And bring your hands up into a pose that we'll modified Tadasana, extended mountain pose, index finger pointing, stretch up, grow an inch taller. And keeping that lengthened spine, body, just feeling that expansion, take a nice long breath. Again, always connecting with your breath. That is the source of your power. Deep inhale and exhale. And from here we'll add a Trikonasana triangle so we get a bit side stretch. So take a nice long inhale, and as you exhale, move to your right, I will move to my left. Sort of I'll mirror you and feel the stretch on your left side. To whatever extent you're comfortable, just opening, feeling that side stretch. Take a nice long breath here. So don't push to a point of pain. Feeling just comfortable. Again, listen to your body. That awareness is important here. And with the next exhalation, come back to center. And now, take a nice long deep inhale. Stretch up again. And as you exhale, move to your left, to my right. And I want to hear you breathing. Don't stop breathing. Again, take nice, long, relaxing breath in this position and just allow your body to cooperate and open up on your right side. Take a nice, long inhale, come back to the center. You can come out of any pose anytime. It's your practice. Interlock your fingers. Turn your hands upwards into a tall mountain. So you're growing to grow inch taller. So if you're wearing heels, this may be difficult. If not, if your shoes are comfortable, see if you can stretch up and lift your heels off. And you're kind of adding a balance to this. And based on who's tottering, I know who's been drinking last night. And exhale and down. Let's try it one more time. Again, inhale, reach up, extending up. Balancing for a while, continuing to breathe, staying present. And exhale, set your heels down. And drop your hands. And just kind of scoop the earth. And sweep it up like a big sunflower. Again, inhale, scoop the earth. And exhale, rotate. It's okay if you touch somebody else. Touch is a good thing among human beings. Inhale and up. And exhale. And bring your hands up to this position. And we'll add a pose called Goddess Pose of Devi Asana. Again, if you don't have heels. So crouch down a little bit. Bend on your heels. Assume you a little bit. And see if you can raise your heels up. If you're wearing the right kind of shoes. Otherwise, heels down. So Devi Asana, Goddess Pose, feeling the power of the Divine Feminine. And exhale and down and come back out. Drop your hands. And we'll finish up a last pose, last two. And this is called Roaring Lion or Simhasana. And the way it works is take a nice long, some of you are laughing, you know where I'm going with this, right? So you'll take a nice long deep breath. And when you exhale forcefully. Thrust down with your hands, crouch, open your mouth wide, stick out your tongue. And bug out your eyes and roar, okay? That's right. Take a nice long deep breath and go. Ah! Okay. All right, Stockholm. I didn't say whimpering lion. I said roaring lion, which means the building has to shake. Let's try it once more. Take a nice long deep breath and go. Ah! Great, beautiful, fantastic. Okay. Yeah, that deserves an applause. Yeah. Stay there. Yeah. We're not done yet. Some of you are wondering, is this really yoga pose? It is, actually. It is in the Yoga Sutras. It stimulates the platysma, I believe, at the base of your tongue and gets the aggression out. Let's go back into mountain pose again. Close your eyes. Stand tall, erect, and proud. Fearless. Hands open, chest open. And just noticing what has happened. So we did a very short practice, but even in this short practice, we found a little bit of stillness in the body, silence in the mind, and spaciousness in the heart. And something shifted inside us. And we didn't need anything from the outside. All we did was move our body, bring our attention and intention, and breathe in a certain way. And there was a subtle shift. That is the power available to every single human being within our body, inside our brain. And all these practices put us in touch with that power. So in this room, there are probably 100, 200, 300 people. We might be from 30 to 50 nationalities, national origins. We might speak about 50 languages in this room. But we can even harmonize our voices as one. So in a short time, I'll ask you to take a nice deep inhale, and then when you exhale, if you will, join me in uttering a single Sanskrit syllable, Om, and let's see what it feels like when we harmonize our voices and bring it together in this room. Take a nice long inhale and begin. And now let the silence sit there for a few seconds, and let's get a feeling of what it's like when 200 minds sit in stillness. And you can open your eyes now, bring your hands in a folded palm gesture that is common to Asian cultures, and express a gratitude towards somebody or someone in your life today. Express a gratitude towards all the people who organized this amazing conference that brings us together. And then we'll wish each other namaste, which simply means the divine in me, the spirit in me honors and acknowledges the spirit in you. So look to the person on the left and the right, and even if they're strangers, just make direct eye contact and wish them namaste. 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 Thank you, and have a seat now. I think we have a couple of more minutes before Sabinjay comes on. Yeah? Do you have a few minutes more, Alfred? 2 minutes. Okay. All right. So I'll lead you through just a quick minute of meditation before Sabinjay comes on and then takes over, and then she'll close out the event. So sit there comfortably on your chair, feet planted, eyes closed, hands on your lap. So you manage to change your body, create a little bit of stillness. And now let's find a little silence in the mind. Connect with your breath. Take a few deep breaths. Deep inhale and exhale. And our minds will start wandering. That is the nature of our mind, but that's okay. And when the mind wanders or runs off in some direction and you notice it, gently come back. Connect with your body and your breath. Simple practice. That is your anchor. So sitting there quietly in stillness, noticing your breath, and then they'll get distracted, the mind runs away, let it run. You notice, come back. And just check in with your breath. And let's do this for a few more seconds. And now slowly, gently, you can open your eyes while I bring Sabinjay back to close out the session. Alfred? Okay, fantastic. Thank you. All right.